Okay, so hello everybody. Very happy to have our third CEE Impulse session today, and I'm welcoming you in the name of the organizers, which are, and this is the first question to Anna. Can you give me a thumbs up if you see my slides or not? Maybe not. Okay, very good. So you see, that's pretty good. Anyway, so the co-organizers are, of course, besides our Chamber of Commerce, which sits in Switzerland, Chamber of Commerce, Switzerland, Central Eastern Europe. We work together on this project and in many other projects with 10 chambers of commerces and business clubs across the region. You can see them here, maybe identify who they are in your country. And well, before I start, I also want to welcome very heartily Anna Lupina-Wegener. She's our speaker today, and I'm very curious to hear what she has to say about working across cultures. And well, you have seen in the invitation, so Anna is a professor, and she's really a specialist on intercultural management. And what I find particularly interesting is she's living what she's talking about. So she's from Poland, living in Switzerland, in the western part of Switzerland. So I'll be very curious to hear what kind of tips she has and how she perceives the cultural differences within Central Eastern Europe, I would say, and between Switzerland and Central Eastern Europe, and what good tips she has that we are a bit more successful in those intercultural relationships. Before we start with Anna, I just wanted to mention the next one, because maybe some people have to leave. Our next CEE-Swiss Impulse session will be about an equally interesting topic, which is how we solve the energy problem. And I'm very happy that we have with Christian Schaffner, the head of the Energy Center of the ETH in Zurich. And of course, they are thinking very hard how we can solve the energy problem. And he will tell us about this on January 11th. Now, today's topic, if you look at this picture, and it's funny, I have been traveling a lot in my life, and I have had many intercultural funny circumstances. And if you see these walls move, or you see those circles move, you are wrongly seeing something that isn't there. And culture is a little bit like this, you interpret things, you see things, but they are not as you see them. And this is what I always found very, very what I found personally very, very interesting. And this is why I'm handing it now over to Anna, and let's hear what she has to say about the things that we might not see, but that are there. Oh, by the way, just some, I forgot, I always forget this. If you have any questions, please use the question button at the bottom of Zoom. And if you have anything interesting to add, something you think that's right, I've seen this, I know this book, etc., please put it in the chat and share it with everybody. So please enjoy. Anna, please.
Thank you, Oliver, for inviting me, and I'm very happy to be there with you this morning. Good morning, everybody. Let me share my presentation with you. Can you see my presentation now? Can you see my screen? Okay, perfect. So I'm really excited to share with you my experiences regarding Swiss and collaborations with partners from Central Eastern Europe. In fact, knowing what makes us, the different cultures, distinctive, knowing about the diversity, what makes people proud is the base for building trust. I believe this topic for today, which Oliver brought up, is particularly important because of COVID. We are increasingly working in virtual teams. We are using technology to collaborate. Many interesting business opportunities open up because we don't need to travel. We can easily connect to people, but building trust is more challenging in those virtual settings. As Oliver said, I am a professor in intercultural management, and I'm also head I'm head of the Center, Intercultural Management Center at the University of Applied Sciences, Western Switzerland. I'm originally from Warsaw, that's where I grew up. However, I spent most of my life outside of Poland, and I'm also looking forward to discussing with you and exchanging on my experiences, but also on your experiences in multicultural team collaborations. I graduated from the Warsaw School of Economics, my master's degree, as well as my PhD in management from the Warsaw School of Economics. During my last semester, I was in Montreal in Canada, which was an amazing experience studying at the HEC Montreal. And then for my PhD, I got a government scholarship, Swiss government scholarship, to continue my research on acquisitions of Polish state-owned companies by Western companies. So my journey in Switzerland began in 2002. I completed my PhD, and then I started my postdoc at the University of Geneva, working on cross-border mergers acquisitions. So this is the topic in which I particularly explore cross-cultural collaborations. I got another scholarship so I could do my research working with a German company in Mexico. I collected data in Mexico. So here's the photo from more or less 15 years ago when I was doing my data collection in Mexico. And after completing my postdoc, I joined University of Applied Sciences, Western Switzerland, working a lot on China. So majority of my research is oriented on Sino-Western mergers and acquisitions. I'm also head of the Center on Intercultural Management. I work on academic publications, but also towards research useful for the practice, for practitioners, and different articles were published in French, German, and English. In fact, now I realized a bit less in Polish, but hopefully this will change. So all this research shows that acknowledging diversity and knowing what makes people proud is the base for trust. And this trust takes particularly specific interventions in the virtual settings in which we are currently working. I prepared the agenda consisting of 3 points. I will discuss my observations on culture diversity in Switzerland. Then I will move to culture diversity in the Central East European region, and then discuss cross-cultural learning, which have enabled innovation in the region. We cannot take Switzerland as a homogeneous country. The diversity is very high, and as they say, it's even more in the region, in the Central East European region. It's a very diversified region. It's not at all homogeneous, which I will be very happy to discuss today with you. Just to start, what does the lemon have to do with the Geneva Lake? Well, it's a lac for majority of the French speakers, it's Lac Le Mans. Internationally, we call it Lac Geneva. In the German language, we'll call, say, Genfasee. However, it's also nice to be knowledgeable what matters to the locals, and for the locals in the region I am based, we really should not refer to Geneva Lake. And when we have Chinese visitors, we tell them to rather say Lemon Lake, just to make sure it's not the Geneva Lake. Similarly, on the left, you have Warsaw. On the right, we are in Russia. Similarly, those two countries are completely different. And even though the architecture might be partially similar, it's important to know what makes those two countries distinctive. So what do we have in common as the Central East Europeans? In fact, I started to feel to belong to the region and strong belonging to the region after I left Poland, because in fact, besides the heritage, the communist heritage, we don't have much in common. However, the others, the Swiss, the Germans, the French, they don't see the diversity, which particularly at the beginning was a bit bothering for me. Afterwards, I just approach it also with a joke. Sometimes I even make a joke and I introduce myself as an East European, and then I see people's reactions. If people react to me saying, well, it's a big region, tell me where you are from, I know that I'm dealing with a person who is knowledgeable about the region, but 90% of the people will not make any reaction. So the common thing we have is the perceptions that they outside of the region have on us. So let's discuss then the cultural diversity as I have experienced it in Switzerland, having worked here for and lived for almost 20 years. Very not homogeneous as a country. 75% Swiss nationals, 25% are foreign nationals, including myself. I have a C permit, kind of a green card. It's a very international place. Many people coming from also Italy, Germany, Portugal, France, Kosovo. However, the regional differences are also very high. So we have a high number of foreign residents like myself, but also the region is very different. So here I started my journey in Switzerland in the canton of Geneva. Canton of Geneva is the way I see it and the way other Swiss perceive it is very international. Some people say it's not really Switzerland, which was surprising for me at the beginning, or for many, many years. So it's international, many international organizations, multinational firms, and it's also, you feel this French spirit, French coming from the other side of the border. Then my journey moved to the Canton de Vaud, where I have been working now for 10 years. Canton de Vaud is identity-wise different from Geneva. It's very Swiss for me, however, also international. However, it's more international Swiss, whereas Geneva is more international, more French. And Canton de Vaud is very strong in entrepreneurship, very strong entrepreneurship spirit, startups, technology, innovation. And currently I live in Fribourg, which is very different from Canton de Vaud and Geneva. Feels very Swiss. French speakers, but also strong influence of the German part already. So the lake, you can see here the Sarine, which is the border between the French and the German part of Switzerland. And then there I realized this diversity of the dialects, that the German dialects that we have, and that even the Swiss Germans, they don't necessarily understand all the dialects, and it's kind of fascinating to see this diversity already in this German-speaking dialects. So the German is the dominant language. Swiss German is the dominant language here in Switzerland, canton in which I am based. So I'm in Fribourg. I'm sitting today in my home office in Fribourg. It's at the border. It's majority French, but also the German Swiss is very strong, and so many different dialects among the Swiss German. Otherwise, English and Portuguese are the most commonly spoken foreign languages in Switzerland. We have 4 national languages. How have I experienced working and living in Switzerland? What I very much appreciate are the clear rules of the game. The people are very performance driven, doing future innovation. What matters is the value that an individual brings to the society, to the company, to the canton, rather than your background, where you studied, what your grandparents did. What really matters who you are and what you bring yourself to the society, to the economy. System works very well, and everybody expects that everybody follows the system. We like the system, and it gives the harmony and equality. The orange light means it's red, whereas in Berlin or in Poland, the orange means it's still green. So the system it works very well. It's consensus driven. The challenges I approach collectively. The challenges I approach in a way that the different stakeholders bring the value rather than being in internal competition. So internal competition there is also some internal competition to drive the economic growth, but the challenges I approach collectively and consensus driven. We could see also this value of equality very strong during the COVID discussions. To make sure that no social or economic group is underprivileged in the measures which are taken. And this equality has been a lot driving the COVID-19 measures taken, which I didn't see so much in my home country, which I also very much follow closely. Here we do not like to talk much about money. Anyways, there's an equal status. The salary differences are not as high as, for example, in my home country. Otherwise discreet, do not like to disturb. There's no bragging. You deliver the work, and it's rather expected that the value is your work brings the value, so you don't need to brag about your achievements. People are proud of the nature, love the nature. They love all the direct democracy, simple life. There are many nice large cities like Zurich or Geneva, but people outside of those cities also, they love the smallness and the nature of their region. So summing up, consensus driven value equality, developing of a resilient society, paying attention to vulnerable people, paying attention to people in disadvantageous situations, be strong together. This is how you can describe the rules of the game here in Switzerland. There's a strong diversity, despite this being, so the country feels together, consensus and equality. French Swiss and Swiss Germans are apparently different. There are many things that the both groups have in common. However, my French Swiss colleagues, they can identify as Swiss German even based on the body language. So, and they stress the distinctiveness of their group. The Swiss Germans are more direct in terms of communication. The French Swiss are a bit more indirect, so it is sometimes a bit of a challenge for me. I need to pay attention. Polish language tends also to be quite direct, so I need to also pay attention to soften my communication and adapt my language. People love their language. The Swiss French tend to protect their cultural heritage from the external influence. For me, one of the surprising things that I considered at the beginning was that in Germany, for example, you will have public bilingual schools already starting from the elementary school, bilingual German-Polish, German-Spanish, German-French. However, there are no bilingual schools like in public primary schools in Geneva or in Warsaw. And I understood that ideas that the region maintains its linguistic heritage, and you can learn another language as a foreign language, with an exception for the cantons, which are bilingual, like Fribourg. And it's also one of the reasons why I moved to Fribourg, because of that bilingual education, which is possible in this canton. Summing up, Switzerland is world's happiest country and very well educated at the same time. Here's an example of the mathematics performance. PISA, Switzerland scores quite high, but it's also the case for the Central Eastern Europe. As you can see, Estonia, Slovenia, Czech Republic, Poland also scores very well on the PISA. And this high level of education is also something that both Switzerland and the Central Eastern Europe share. So let me move now to the cultural diversity in the Central Eastern Europe. We are talking about the region of 17 countries. Albania, Bosnia-Herzegovina, Bulgaria, the Czech Republic, Croatia, Estonia, Hungary, Kosovo, Latvia, Lithuania, Montenegro, North Macedonia, Poland, Romania, Serbia, Slovakia, and Slovenia. I'm very excited that we can be sitting together on Zoom, and different people from all those different places can be here together and have this discussion about the collaborations. So in terms of the total population, it's 121 million, which shows a huge diversity in terms of the cultures, 17 countries, distinctive cultural heritage, distinctive identity, with especially over the population of 121 million. There are two largest countries in the region, Poland with a population of 38.2 million, then the second largest is Romania, but we also have small countries such as Montenegro, Estonia, Kosovo, or Latvia. So one region, very strong diversity. Also, the definitions of the regions differ. The OECD definition is a bit different from this one. Multinational companies, they have their own definitions of the region. But what matters the most is that this region is not homogeneous, and it's very, each country is different from the other country. There are some countries grouped like Visegrad Group, which sticks often also politically together. In those countries, we have distinctive languages, 6 language groups, different alphabet. Majority of the languages are the Slavic languages, and we also speak the Slavic languages beyond the Central Eastern Europe. You speak it also in Russia, Ukraine, Belarus. For us, it's relatively okay to understand. We don't perfectly understand, but there are many similarities in those Slavic languages, which also helped me motivate my own children to be fluent in Polish, because it's a Slavic language, and I believe it's very important to speak the one of Slavic languages. In my family case, it's Polish. Since you speak those languages mainly in the country, young people are very eager to learn foreign languages. English is the most common foreign language, but many people in Poland also speak German, French, but not so much Russian. Those countries have a unique heritage. They feel a little bit like young, in my opinion, young nations, proud about their culture, especially that many of those countries also lost independence for many years. The independence was regained for Albania in 1912, but for Kosovo only recently. So you feel those proud of the heritage of their independence countries. They have a strong identity. There's a strong attachment to tradition, to the history. People are determined and quite tough, going through different wars and the communist past, which also resulted in entrepreneurship, performance orientation, overall flexibility and agility. As part-time jobs are also not frequent in the region, and also because I guess the communist past, there's a low gender pay gap. So if you look into the statistics, the gender pay gap between men and women is lower in the region than in Western Europe. There's also a strong curiosity about the external world. There's an openness to learn from foreigners, learn from other people. Overall, the learning drive is very strong, as I can see it among my Polish students. This learning drive is also very strong when I teach in China. So very curious, open to learn, to perform, and to benefit from the different opportunities which are available to the young people. In the region, we value family, friends, and trust tends to be in the relationships. And trust is something which I consider particularly very important. Since the value is in family trust and trust is in relationships, we can see here from the example of Poland that 65% of Polish people tend to definitely trust immediate family, parents, children, spouse, whereas only 10% of Poles trust people in general. Definitely trust people in general. So we have this strong trust in the immediate networks, which also impacts the business relationships. And networking and interpersonal relations do matter in business a lot. Formal introduction is helpful. Often also the importance of the dress code is important. Poland is is quite hierarchical, so you tend, but also depends on the industry. The industry has its different codes and norms of behavior, but overall Poland, for example, scores also high on high power distance according to the Hofstede framework. Also, for the trust building in the business relationships, greetings, negotiations can take longer. And what matters also in terms of business relationships is the way we communicate. That's a framework which simplifies our tendency and how we tend to communicate. We have 3 types of culture types: linear active, reactive, multi-active. Swiss, German tend to be more linear active. Linear active means that the speech is for the information. You talk and listen in equal proportions. You monochronic, you discuss one thing at a time, very polite, very logical. You tend not to interrupt, stay result focused. We can see that the region, the Central East European region, is very different in terms of how we communicate. I let you briefly have a look and find your own country. We see some similarities between Poland, Hungary, Lithuania, Romania, Serbia, Croatia, Slovakia, but the way the communication in Bulgaria, Finland or Estonia will be also different, which also shows how that the entire region is not homogeneous. The way we communicate has an impact on the way we do negotiate. In Poland, there will be a strong deal and relationship focus. You can show the emotions. It's more this multi-active type of communication where we can display feelings, we can display the emotions, not only fact-based. There's also more thinking out loud and more multi-active, discussing several things at the same time. However, there's a low context communication, very direct communication. Bargaining is uncommon, friendly but pointed negotiations, which also has some implications and some challenges, for example, for Chinese companies negotiating and developing business in Poland, with few cases which failed also because of difficulty in terms of communication and negotiations. Also, if you take the Hofstede framework, the region differs. In the region, there are high power distance countries or more long-term also driven cultures, but there are some other countries in the region which are more attached to the tradition. So the region is, the Central Eastern European region is highly diversified, and knowing the cultural values, knowing what makes people proud is the base for the trust. And therefore, it's important to dig into the culture of your business counterpart. Here is an example of the cultural differences as an example of Hofstede. We can see that Hungary will be less power distance, scores lower on power distance than Slovakia, but I let you take a second. And then the same, for example, if we compare Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, also very different than in the case of Poland or Hungary. So let me move to the third part of my presentation, cross-cultural learning, enabling innovation in the region. The region this is from Financial Times, which shows how the region is becoming more attractive for foreign companies. It all started with the great leaders that we had in Poland, for example, or Václav Havel, who pushed for the transition from the communist to the democratic societies and political systems with people's hard work. This is how Poland looked when I was a child. It was 40 years ago. But the memories are still there. They are still present with me. And with the foreign investment in the 90s, with acquisitions, with the transition from the state-owned to private-owned, with the foreign investors bringing the knowledge, the region started to grow and to develop. I remember when I was doing my PhD that there was lots of evidence and lots of examples of cultural differences, language difficulties. It used to be still challenging to collaborate with our West European partners. It's no longer the case now. The cultural convergence took place. No more cultural differences. Language differences are no longer an issue. We have amazing examples of successes, like Skoda is one of the best sold cars in Switzerland. It's a pride of the region for sure. It's also a brand which is older than Mercedes. Very successful acquisition by Volkswagen, but we also have amazing companies and innovative companies like Unipath from Romania, which is grew as a startup in Romania. So as you can see that the last 30 years were very intensive in terms of learning, business development, innovation development. Increasingly, the research and development becomes, it's increasing also in the region. And the countries become increasingly innovative. Here you can see also from Financial Times ranking in the Global Innovation Index, with Czech Republic, Hungary, Estonia, Latvia being first most innovative economies. So what is important is it's being knowledgeable into what matters to the locals and what make local people proud of their heritage. We increasingly also need to know how to work effectively in multicultural teams. We need to know how about the principles of intercultural communication, how to lead multicultural teams, and how in those multicultural teams we can leverage cross-cultural learning and how to leverage the creativity. This is especially important in the current context with the COVID, that our collaborations are increasingly virtual. And I would like to conclude with a short interview that I conducted with a Swiss entrepreneur who works with his counterparts in Serbia about his experiences and about what he did in order to leverage the creativity, which is also possessed by his counterparts in Serbia. So let me show you this 3-minute interview that I took after our discussion. So just to briefly conclude, we are also offering training for developing intercultural management in the digital age in order to develop those 4 competences: collaboration, communication, leadership, cross-cultural learning, and creativity. And I'm be happy to connect with you and exchange now during the Q&A, but also beyond this webinar. Great meeting you all, and thanks for coming.
Okay, thank you, Anna. Right on time. So we always stop at 11:45, so it's short and on the spot. But of course, Anna said she would be staying for questions and answers. To all the others, I wish you a very Merry Christmas, good holiday season, and all the best for next year. Again, on January 11th, there will be the next year Impulse sessions. I hope to be seeing most of you or some of you in the near future. If you have a question, please type it in the question box. I have a question, Anna. Now you are I used to live in China, and I was the head of the China region. I was the head of Europe, and I was always thinking, I always tried to think in terms of intercultural differences. Now, if you see China doing business with Switzerland, or China doing business with any CE country, or a CE country doing business with Switzerland, do you see, bigger problems that one would think of, doing business with China than with CE and Switzerland, or do you see more opportunities? How do you perceive that?
I think we have amazing opportunities to collaborate, especially that also we all work now perfectly well using the digital communication spaces. The most important is to collaborate based on the trust, and we can collaborate based on trust when we know what makes our business counterparts, what they value in their culture, what they value in their culture heritage. I believe it's the key for trust is being an active listener, being relationship focused, and this relationship focus is also extremely important now when we cannot travel, when we cannot see the context, we cannot see the office of our business counterpart, we cannot talk having a beer, having a drink. Therefore, it's very important to be an active listener, ask the questions, and not, especially if you work with China, not to judge the people, but listen, ask them how they feel about how they feel about their culture heritage. And it's important to know, especially China being such an old country, such an old civilization, to ask the people about the things which matter to them rather than things which matter to us.
Okay, interesting. So I guess China is coming. They will be here. It's always good. Also, if you have questions about China, I guess Anna is a terrific expert on this subject. There was a question about the slides, I guess, Anna. I think we can share those, or what do you say?
Yes, I would be very happy to share the slides over LinkedIn if I get a request, but I will send you my handouts, Oliver, so that you can also share with the participants directly.
Very good. Yeah, so I will send out we will send out an email with the presentations, and I guess I'm looking for any question, but I guess that's always a good sign, and we are almost finished on time. Again, Anna, many thanks for your time and for agreeing to do this. It was a new format that we tried, and she agreed very much at the start of this new format to do this, and I hope it was a good session for all of you. And again, I wish you a great day and a happy holiday season. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and greetings to Warsaw, Tallinn, Prague, Bratislava, Budapest, Zagreb. Great that you all were here. and looking forward to further exchanging.